She walked in as not good enough. But someone in the crowd recognized her name. The morning should have felt like a blessing. The kind of day you expect to remember as the beginning. Instead, it began with a knot in Lena Harper's chest that no amount of deep breathing could loosen. In the bridal suite of the Grand Heritage Cathedral, sunlight poured through stained glass and painted her dress in shifting colors, ruby, sapphire, gold, like the building itself was trying to convince her this was sacred. Her maid of honor, Nia, stood behind her with a calm steadiness Lena always envied. "You're shaking," Nia said gently, placing warm hands on Lena's shoulders. "Not because you're unsure about love. Because you're walking into a room that has been judging you since the moment you said yes." Lena forced a small smile at the mirror. She looked like the bride from every dream, soft ivory satin, lace sleeves, hair pinned with tiny pearls. But the reflection didn't show the real weight she carried. The way she'd been treated since she started dating Grant Whitmore, the charming heir to a legacy family, whose last name opened doors that her own could only knock on. Her mother, Evelyn, sat quietly in the corner, holding a small clutch purse as if it were armor. She'd worn her best dress and her strongest face, but Lena saw the worry in her eyes. Evelyn had cleaned offices in the past, taken extra shifts, and raised Lena with one constant lesson: be kind, be prepared, and never beg for dignity. Then the door opened without knocking. Celeste Whitmore stepped in like she owned the air. Grant's mother wore a pale designer suit and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She scanned Lena the way people scan price tags, then glanced at Evelyn like she was part of the furniture. You're presentable," Celeste said as if she were offering charity. "I'll give you that." Nia straightened. She looked stunning. Celeste ignored her and turned back to Lena. "Just remember, today isn't only about you. This wedding is a public event. There are donors, partners, and press. The Whitmore name has standards." Evelyn's fingers tightened around her purse. Lena felt heat rise in her face, but she swallowed it down. She'd promised herself she wouldn't let them steal her joy. She'd learned long ago that some people don't need a reason to look down on you, they just need the opportunity. Celeste's eyes flicked to Lena's mother. "And please, let's avoid anything that might appear out of place. We've arranged seating. Your side is smaller. That's fine. It will look tidy." Lena's stomach turned. "My side isn't tidy. It's my family." Celeste smiled as if Lena were a child being dramatic. "Of course. And I'm sure they're lovely people. But we don't want misunderstandings today." Misunderstandings. Lena had heard that word before. It was what they called anything that made them uncomfortable: her scholarship background, her accent slipping out when she was emotional, her mother's working-class hands. Even Lena's job had been dismissed in front of their friends with a laugh. "She does community work." Lena didn't do community work. She ran a non-profit compliance firm that helped small organizations survive audits and keep funding. She'd built it from nothing with long nights, client calls, and a determination that had teeth. But the Whitmores treated it like a hobby, the way wealthy people do when they've never had to earn respect. Celeste leaned closer. "One more thing. Grant's father asked me to remind you, the prenuptial agreement is signed. No confusion. No drama." Nia's voice sharpened. "That's inappropriate." Celeste finally looked at Nia. "What's inappropriate is pretending love is enough. Lena is fortunate. The Whitmores are generous. Let's not insult that generosity with expectations." And then she left as quickly as she arrived, her perfume lingering like a warning. Lena stood very still, hands gripping her bouquet. For a moment, the cathedral felt less like a sanctuary and more like a courtroom. Evelyn rose slowly. "Baby," she said softly, "you don't have to do this." "I do," Lena whispered. Then quieter, "I love him." Nia's eyes held Lena's. "Love is real. But love is not supposed to require you to shrink." A knock came, this time polite. A young assistant poked her head in. "Miss Harper? The coordinator says we're 5 minutes out." Lena exhaled as if she'd been holding her breath for months. As they moved toward the entrance, Lena caught a glimpse of the guest list on a clipboard. Names she recognized from headlines. Powerful people. Expensive people. People who would never understand what it meant to count every dollar, to be judged at first sight, to feel like you're auditioning for respect. At the cathedral doors, the music began. Lena linked her arm with her mother, because her father had passed away when she was 17, and because Evelyn had earned the right to walk her into every room in life. The doors opened. The aisle stretched long and unforgiving. On the left, the Whitmore world. Tailored suits, jewels, polite smiles that carried sharp edges. On the right, Lena's world. Co-workers, friends, neighbors, people who had held her up when she was building herself. Grant stood at the front, handsome and confident, as if nothing in the world could touch him. And for one fragile moment, Lena believed it. She believed the nightmare was just nerves. She believed love could bridge everything. The officiant spoke about devotion, about partnership, about honoring one another. Grant's eyes met Lena's and he smiled warmly, and Lena's heart unclenched a little. Then the officiant reached the traditional line. The one people treat like a formality. The one no one expects anyone to answer. If anyone here knows a reason why these two should not be joined, speak now or forever hold your peace. Silence filled the cathedral. Then a chair scraped loudly. A man stood from the Whitmore side near the front. Middle-aged, confident, a face that looked familiar in the way powerful faces do. He cleared his throat. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I can't stay silent." Gasps rippled like wind through the pews. Lena's entire body went cold. Grant turned, his smile dropping. "Richard?" he hissed. The man, Richard, lifted a folder. "I came today expecting a wedding. Instead, I discovered I've been invited to a performance." Lena's mouth went dry. Evelyn tightened her grip. Celeste Whitmore stood up now too, eyes wide with alarm. Not fear for Lena. Fear for reputation. Richard looked directly at Lena for the first time. "Ms. Harper," he said, voice carrying, "do you know who you're marrying?" Lena swallowed. "Yes." Richard's laugh was short and humorless. "Then you either don't know him or you don't know what he's done." Grant stepped forward aggressively. "This is not the place." But Richard raised the folder higher. "Actually, this is exactly the place. Because if this marriage happens, it becomes much harder to undo what he's been hiding." Lena's heart hammered so loudly she could barely hear. "What are you talking about?" Richard's eyes sharpened. "Fraud. Grants. Misused donations. Pressure on smaller organizations. Threats disguised as contracts. And that's only the beginning." The cathedral erupted, whispers, shocked murmurs, heads turning. Grant's face changed. The polished mask cracked. "You're lying." Richard turned to the front row of Whitmore guests. "Ask your son where the Whitmore Foundation's missing funds went. Ask him why partner organizations have been quietly collapsing." Celeste's lips parted, but no sound came out. Lena stared at Grant, searching his face for the truth. "Grant, what is he saying?" Grant reached for Lena's hand too fast, too tight. "Baby, he's angry because I ended a deal. He's trying to ruin us." "Us?" Lena echoed, stunned. "Or you?" Richard placed the folder on the officiant's stand. Documents. Emails. Financial transfers. Then he looked at Lena again, something strange in his expression like recognition. Lena's breath caught as she saw it. He wasn't just accusing Grant. He was looking at Lena like he knew something about her too. And then he said the words that turned the cathedral into absolute silence. "Ms. Harper. I need to know something before I go further. Are you Lena Harper, of Harper Compliance Group?" Lena blinked. "Yes." Richard's eyes widened a fraction. Then, this just became much bigger than a wedding. Grant's grip tightened painfully. "Stop talking," he muttered through clenched teeth, his smile gone completely now. And Lena realized something terrifying in that moment. This wasn't just about humiliation. This was about control. And the people who thought she was not good enough had no idea they had just challenged the one person in the room who knew how to pull truth into daylight. They tried to make her the scandal, until she opened the folder. Lena's hands trembled as she reached for the documents. Grant tried to block her, stepping in front of the stand like a guard protecting a secret. But the entire cathedral was watching now. Too many eyes, too many phones, too much attention for him to control with charm. "Move," Lena said quietly. Grant's smile returned in a thin, desperate version of itself. "Lena, please. Not here. Not like this." Celeste rushed forward, voice sharp with false concern. "Sweetheart, don't let this man bait you. This is obviously a personal attack." Evelyn's voice cut through like steel wrapped in velvet. "Then it should be easy to disprove." Grant shot Lena's mother a look of disgust so quick most people missed it. Lena didn't. She saw it and something in her chest hardened. Richard spoke again. "Ms. Harper, I'm not proud of doing this publicly. But your fiancé has a history of making problems disappear behind closed doors." Grant lunged toward Richard, but two ushers stepped between them. The officiant, pale-faced, tried to regain control. "We should pause." "No," Lena said louder this time. "We should read." She opened the folder. The first page was a summary: grant distributions, partner accounts, discrepancies. It was laid out cleanly, professionally, like someone who knew exactly how audits worked. Her stomach dropped. Because Lena knew. She recognized the format. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't gossip. This was evidence prepared by someone who understood compliance, paper trails, and consequences. Lena flipped to the next pages. Emails. Conversations. A chain where Grant pressured a smaller nonprofit director to sign an updated partnership agreement that would essentially siphon their funding into a Whitmore-controlled subsidiary. Then she saw the line that made her blood turn cold. Grant, if you don't sign, we can make sure your funding dries up. You'll be blamed for mismanagement. And you'll never work in this city again. Lena lifted her gaze to Grant. His face was rigid. Grant, Lena whispered. Is this real? Grant's voice softened, too rehearsed, too smooth. They're twisting things. Business gets complicated. Threatening a nonprofit director isn't business, Lena said, voice shaking. Celeste stepped in again. Lena, you're emotional. Let's not confuse. Don't, Lena snapped, shocking even herself. Don't call this emotion when it's truth. The murmurs grew louder. People were filming openly now. Grant's father stood up, face thunderous, but even he looked uncertain, because paper is harder to argue with than rumors. Lena turned another page and found transfers. Money moving from a foundation account into a consulting firm with a name she didn't recognize. Then she saw the address. It matched Grant's private office. Her vision blurred. She looked at Richard. Why are you doing this? Richard's jaw tightened. Because my sister runs one of the partner organizations. She was pressured into signing something she didn't understand. Her staff lost jobs. Families were hurt. And your fiancé smiled at charity dinners while people suffered. Grant's voice rose. Enough. But Lena wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at the cathedral, at the guests who had seen her as an outsider, a lucky girl, a charity case. You all think you're watching a scandal, Lena said, voice gaining strength. But you're watching something else too. She turned to Celeste. You said the Whitmore name has standards. Is this your standard? Celeste's face tightened. How dare you? How dare I? Lena echoed. How dare you treat my mother like she's less human, while standing on money stolen from people who needed help? A shock wave moved through the room. Even the Whitmore friends looked uncomfortable now. Grant stepped closer, voice low, threatening. Lena. Stop. And Lena felt the fear, real sharp, because Grant wasn't just embarrassed. He was angry she was not staying obedient. Then something unexpected happened. A woman stood up from Lena's side. Small, middle-aged, wearing a plain navy dress. Lena recognized her immediately, Mrs. Patel, who ran a community center Lena had helped stabilize last year. Mrs. Patel's voice trembled, but she spoke anyway. The Whitmore Foundation promised us funding. Then they demanded control. When we refused, they called us ungrateful. We almost closed. Head snapped toward her. The Whitmore side stiffened. Another person stood. A young man with a cane. My brother worked at one of those nonprofits. He lost his job when the funds vanished. Then another. And another. The cathedral became a courtroom of lived experience. Celeste looked around, panicked now, not because people were hurt but because people were speaking. Grant tried to take Lena's hand again, but she pulled away. And as she looked down at the pages, Lena realized something that changed everything. One of the emails had a copied address at the bottom. Someone in oversight. A name Lena recognized from her own work. A government compliance investigator. Lena's throat tightened. Because if that person was involved, this wasn't just an embarrassing exposure. This was criminal. Grant had told Lena he supported her mission, her work, her cute little passion. All while using the same system to crush people. And then Celeste, voice shaking with fury, said the thing she thought would put Lena back in her place. This is exactly why you don't belong here, Celeste snapped. This is why we didn't want your kind mixing with our world. The words hit like a slap. The cathedral went silent. Lena felt her mother's hand touch her elbow, steady, protective. Nia's eyes flashed with anger. And Lena, in that moment, realized the story was no longer about a wedding. It was about dignity. It was about people who believed money made them superior, until truth made them accountable. Lena lifted her chin. My kind? She repeated, voice calm now. You mean the kind who pays for what they have with work instead of entitlement? Celeste's face twisted. Lena turned to the crowd. You can call me whatever you want. But you can't call me blind. She closed the folder slowly, like a judge finishing a verdict. And she looked directly at Grant. I'm not marrying you, she said. Grant's face went white. But you're not getting away with this either. They tried to destroy her reputation. Until she played the one card they never saw coming. The hours after Lena walked out of Heritage Cathedral felt unreal, like moving through a storm while everyone else watched from behind glass. Outside, reporters appeared like they had been summoned. Cameras flashed. Microphones pushed forward. Lena, did you know about the allegations? Grant, is this true? Celeste, what do you say to claims of intimidation? Grant's security team moved quickly, forming a wall. Celeste didn't look at Lena. She looked at the cameras, already calculating damage control. Lena's first instinct was to run. Not because she was guilty. Because she was human. Because humiliation is a special kind of pain. Especially when you were already treated as less before the world saw you bleed. Evelyn guided Lena into a car. Nia got in beside them, phone already buzzing with messages and missed calls. Inside the quiet, Lena finally exhaled, then broke. Tears came hard, not pretty, not cinematic. The kind that leaves your chest aching. I feel stupid, Lena whispered. Evelyn shook her head. No. You feel betrayed. Nia glanced at her phone. It's already online. Lena's stomach sank. Of course it is. Within hours, clips were everywhere. But the narrative was already being twisted, because powerful people don't just lose. They rewrite. A headline spread, Bride humiliates groom's family at wedding, chaos erupts. Another, Gold digger meltdown? Wedding turned public spectacle. Lena stared at the words like they were knives. Gold digger, she repeated, hollow. Evelyn's voice was quiet but firm. That's what they call women who refuse to stay grateful. Nia scrolled faster. And here we go. The Whitmore PR team just released a statement. Lena's heart pounded as Nia read aloud. The Whitmore family is deeply saddened by the disruption caused by a disgruntled former business associate. We stand by Grant Whitmore's integrity. Ms. Lena Harper's behavior appears to be influenced by outside manipulation. We ask for privacy during this personal matter. Lena's hands clenched. They were turning her into the problem. Not the threats. Not the missing funds. Not the collapsed organizations. Her behavior. Her influence. Her outside manipulation. It was the oldest trick in the book. If a woman speaks truth, call her unstable. If a poor person exposes the rich, call them jealous. If an outsider demands respect, call them ungrateful. By nightfall, Lena's clients were calling. Some were supportive. Some were scared. One director spoke in a whisper. Lena, we love you, but the Whitmores, they have reach. We can't afford to be targeted. Lena's throat tightened. I understand. After the call ended, Lena stared at the wall. The nightmare was evolving. The wedding was just the opening scene. Now came the punishment for not staying quiet. 2 days later, Lena received a formal notice. A lawsuit threat for defamation and contract interference. It wasn't just legal pressure. It was a message. We can drown you. Nia slammed her laptop shut. They're trying to scare you into silence. Evelyn looked at Lena with a sadness that carried history. People like them don't fight fair. Lena didn't respond right away. Her mind was moving differently now, less like a bride, more like the professional she had built herself into. She opened her own laptop. She pulled up her client files. She reviewed partnerships, grant language, compliance regulations. She opened a secure folder she rarely spoke about. Nia leaned in. What are you doing? Lena's voice was steady, almost cold. Finishing what they started. Evelyn frowned. Baby, don't do anything that hurts you. I'm not going to hurt anyone, Lena said. I'm going to tell the truth the right way. Because Lena had a secret. One she never shared with the Whitmores because she knew how they viewed connections, unless they benefited them. Lena Harper did not just run a compliance firm. She was also a contracted consultant for a state oversight program, helping investigators trace fraud patterns, teach nonprofit leaders how to document threats, and prepare evidence packages that held up in court. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't a wealthy title. But it was power. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need applause to be real. Lena opened her phone and called a number she hadn't used in months. A calm voice answered. Office of Public Integrity. This is Lena Harper, Lena said. I need to file an emergency evidence submission connected to the Whitmore Foundation. Pause. Then, Ms. Harper, we were hoping you'd call. Lena's pulse quickened. You already have a case? We have inquiries, the voice said carefully. But we didn't have a cooperating witness with direct access. Lena's eyes narrowed. You do now. That week, Lena met with investigators in a plain office building that smelled like copier paper and seriousness. She brought documentation. She brought timelines. She brought names of organizations willing to testify. The lead investigator, Miss Caldwell, flipped through the evidence with quiet intensity. This is extensive. Lena's jaw tightened. It's also real. Miss Caldwell looked up. Why were you marrying him? The question hurt more than Lena expected. Because he convinced me love could make him different, Lena said softly. And because I wanted to believe I could belong in a world that never made room for me. Miss Caldwell's expression softened, not pity but respect. They count on that. When Lena left the building, the air felt colder. The city lights looked sharper. Nothing was healed. But Lena wasn't lost anymore. She was focused. 2 days later, the Whitmore retaliation escalated. Grant showed up at Lena's office, uninvited, wearing that familiar smile that used to make Lena feel safe. Lena, he said, voice gentle. We need to talk. Her staff froze. Nia stepped in front like a shield. Lena walked out calmly. Say it. Grant's smile flickered. I'm sorry things got dramatic. My mother overreacted. Lena stared at him. Your mother revealed who she is. Grant leaned closer, lowering his voice. And you're about to reveal who you are. Lena's skin prickled. What does that mean? Grant's eyes sharpened. I know you're meeting with people. I know you think you're doing something heroic. Lena held her ground. I'm doing something right. Grant's voice turned cold. You're going to lose everything. Your clients. Your reputation. Your business. You'll be that girl who ruined her own wedding out of bitterness. Lena blinked slowly. Is that a threat? Grant shrugged, a careless gesture. It's reality. And then he smiled again like a man who believed consequences were for other people. Walk away, Lena. Take a settlement. Disappear. That's the best deal you'll ever get. Lena's heart pounded, but her voice didn't shake. No, she said. The best deal I'll ever get is my self-respect. Grant's face hardened. Then I hope you enjoy the fall. He turned to leave. But Lena spoke one more time, calm, precise. Grant, she said. I hope you enjoy yours. Because Lena knew something Grant didn't. The investigation was already moving. And the instant karma he thought only applied to powerless people was coming for him. They laughed when she testified. Until the judge asked one question that changed everything. The hearing room was crowded, but not with the kind of glamour the Whitmores loved. No champagne. No smiling donors. Just legal professionals, reporters, and the quiet hum of consequence. Lena sat behind her attorney, hands folded, posture straight. Evelyn sat behind her, calm as stone, wearing the same navy dress she'd worn the day Grant proposed, because she refused to let them steal the meaning of anything else. Across the room, Grant Whitmore sat with a team of lawyers. Celeste sat beside him, composed, face lifted like she was attending a charity gala instead of a hearing about misconduct. When Lena entered, Celeste looked her up and down and smirked, still convinced Lena was a temporary inconvenience. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The hearing began with procedural language. Motions. Evidence admissibility. The kind of slow, technical steps that people underestimate, until it locks like a trap. Grant's attorney spoke first, confident. This is a personal dispute, fueled by a broken engagement and media sensationalism. Ms. Harper has motives. The word motives hung in the air like poison. Then Lena's attorney stood. Yes, Ms. Harper has motives, he said. Her motive is preventing nonprofits from being extorted and dismantled. Her motive is protecting public trust. Grant's attorney scoffed. She's a jilted bride seeking revenge. A ripple of laughter, small, restrained, came from the Whitmore side. Lena's jaw tightened. She didn't react. She refused to become the stereotype they wanted. Then Lena was called to testify. As she approached the stand, she felt every eye on her, some curious, some judgmental, some quietly rooting for her. She placed her hand on the book, swore the oath, and sat. The opposing attorney smiled politely. Ms. Harper, you were supposed to be married to Mr. Whitmore, correct? Yes. And the wedding was interrupted. You were embarrassed publicly, yes. I was. And then, shortly after, you began coordinating with investigators. Lena looked him directly in the eye. I began submitting evidence of wrongdoing. The lawyer's smile widened. Right. Evidence you suddenly found, after being humiliated. Lena paused. You assume I needed humiliation to recognize fraud. The lawyer tilted his head. Did you love Mr. Whitmore? Lena's chest tightened. I loved the person he pretended to be. A murmur moved through the room. The lawyer leaned in. Or did you love the idea of becoming a Whitmore? Celeste's lips curved. Grant's eyes sharpened. Lena inhaled slowly. No. The lawyer's tone turned sharper. Are you aware of how you appear? A woman from, he glanced down, a modest background suddenly accusing a prestigious family with cameras watching. Lena's voice was even. I'm aware that when someone like me speaks, people like you try to turn it into a character flaw. The judge's gaze lifted. The lawyer pressed. So you admit you're doing this to prove something? Lena's eyes did not flinch. I'm doing this because people lost jobs, programs shut down, and organizations serving vulnerable communities were threatened into silence. The lawyer's smile faded. Let's talk about your expertise. You claim you understand compliance. I do. How? Lena's answer was simple. Because I built my career on it. The lawyer waved dismissively. You run a small firm. Lena nodded. A firm that has kept dozens of nonprofits open. A firm that has trained directors on audit survival. A firm that works with oversight bodies. Grant's lawyer snapped. Objection, irrelevant. The judge raised a hand. Overruled. Continue. Lena continued, voice steady but human. You all treated me like I was lucky to be invited into your world. But my work is the reason some people have a world to stand in at all. The room went quiet. Then Lena's attorney submitted testimony from multiple nonprofit leaders, each describing pressure, threats, and missing funds. One by one, the Whitmore narrative began to collapse, not with drama but with consistency. Grant's lawyer tried to regain control. This is anecdotal. The judge frowned. Anecdotal can still be pattern. Then came the turning point. The judge looked at Grant directly. Mr. Whitmore, where are the funds that were earmarked for partner organizations in the last fiscal year? Grant's jaw tightened. They were reallocated. By what process? The judge asked. Grant hesitated. And in that hesitation, everyone saw it, the crack in the power armor. Celeste leaned over, whispering urgently. Grant's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we request a recess. The judge's voice was firm. Denied. Answer the question. Grant swallowed. We followed internal procedures. The judge's eyes narrowed. Internal procedures are not law. Then the judge turned to Lena. Ms. Harper, she said, voice softer, you've provided documentation of intimidation. Why didn't these organizations report earlier? Lena's throat tightened, not with fear but emotion. Because they were scared, Lena said. Because when wealthy people control funding, they control survival. And when someone depends on you to feed kids, keep lights on, keep services running, fear becomes a leash. The judge sat back, expression unreadable. Then she spoke slowly, clearly. This court will not be used as a shield for extortion. Grant's face went pale. Celeste's composure cracked, just for a second. Reporters leaned forward. The judge continued. I am ordering immediate financial review and compliance oversight. And I am referring this matter for further investigation. The room erupted, not in cheers but in the electricity of consequences landing. Grant's lawyer objected, protested, tried to slow it down, but it was too late. Because in the space of one hearing, the Whitmores had been moved from untouchable to accountable. And Lena, who they had tried to reduce to a jilted bride, had become the voice they couldn't dismiss. When Lena stepped down from the stand, Evelyn met her eyes. No words were needed. It was the first time in a long time Lena felt like the room respected her without requiring her to shrink. They thought the story ended at the altar. Until she showed the world what healing looks like. Weeks passed and the headlines changed. At first, the internet loved the spectacle. The runaway bride. The wedding scandal. The rich family exposed. But then the deeper story emerged, because evidence has weight and truth has patience. Partner organizations began receiving emergency relief funds through independent channels. Directors who had been afraid to speak finally did, because Lena's case gave them cover, courage, and a clear path. Grant's accounts were audited. Contracts were frozen. Donors demanded answers. And the Whitmore empire, built on polished appearances, was now forced to face the mess behind the curtain. One afternoon, Lena stood outside her office building, watching her staff work through a heavy week. The air was cold and bright. Nia stood beside her, scrolling. They're calling you a hero, Nia said. Lena's mouth tightened. I'm not a hero. I'm someone who got tired of being quiet. Nia looked up. That's what heroes usually are. Lena didn't respond. Because her heart still hurt. The truth is, justice doesn't erase betrayal. It doesn't magically repair trust. It doesn't return the innocence of believing love will always protect you. Lena still had nights where she woke up hearing Celeste's voice, "You're kind." She still had moments of shame that weren't hers to carry. She still had to rebuild her confidence in love, in people, in her own judgment. Healing was not dramatic. Healing was daily. Then, unexpectedly, Lena received an email. It was from a woman named Hannah Whitmore, Grant's younger cousin. Lena barely knew her. She'd always been quiet at family events, eyes down, like someone trying not to take up space. The email was short. "Miss Harper, I'm sorry. I saw things for years and stayed silent because I was scared. Thank you for doing what I couldn't. If you ever need a witness to how the foundation operated behind closed doors, I'm willing." Lena stared at the screen. Nia read over her shoulder and exhaled. "That's big." Evelyn, sitting nearby with tea, spoke quietly. "When one person stands up, it gives other people permission to stop lying to themselves." Lena met with Hannah days later in a small cafe. Hannah's hands shook as she spoke. "They always said it was strategy," Hannah whispered. "They called people ungrateful if they questioned them. And when someone pushed back, they crushed them quietly." Lena listened, heart heavy but not surprised. Power often doesn't announce itself as cruelty. It calls itself efficiency, standards, control. Lena documented Hannah's testimony carefully and submitted it through proper channels. It strengthened the case. Then came the day the Whitmores tried one last move. Celeste requested a private meeting. Everyone advised Lena not to go. But Lena understood something now. Fear grows when you avoid it. So she went, on her terms, bringing her attorney and meeting in a professional conference room, not in anyone's mansion. Celeste arrived dressed perfectly, face composed as if none of this had touched her. She didn't sit right away. She looked at Lena as though Lena were still the girl in the bridal suite, someone Celeste could intimidate into submission. "Lena," Celeste began, voice controlled. "I'm offering you something generous." Lena didn't flinch. "You're offering me something strategic." Celeste's eyes narrowed. "Call it what you want. If you withdraw public cooperation, we can—" "No," Lena said simply. Celeste's composure cracked. "You're making a mistake. You could have had everything." Lena's voice remained calm. "Everything you offered came with humiliation as a price." Celeste leaned forward, suddenly furious. "Do you know what you've done to our family?" Lena looked her in the eye. "Do you know what your family did to others?" Celeste's mouth tightened. Lena continued. "You asked me to be grateful for being tolerated. I'm not interested in tolerance. I'm interested in respect." Celeste's voice dropped. "You think you're better than us now?" Lena shook her head. "No. I think I'm equal. And you can't stand that." Silence stretched. Finally Celeste sat, slower, like the fight was leaving her. "Grant is under pressure." Lena's expression didn't change. "So were the nonprofits you threatened." Celeste swallowed, and for the first time, Lena saw something real, not kindness but fear. Because Celeste was learning what powerless people learn early: actions have consequences. When the meeting ended, Lena walked out into the crisp air and felt something lift inside her. Not happiness. Not victory. Something quieter. Freedom. Months later, Lena stood in a community center auditorium, one of the places that had almost shut down. Children's drawings lined the walls. Staff members smiled with cautious hope. A small crowd gathered for a reopening event. Lena wasn't wearing a wedding gown. She wore a simple blazer and soft makeup. And the light in her eyes wasn't borrowed from anyone else's approval. Evelyn sat in the front row, hands folded, face proud. Nia stood near the side, filming, not for scandal but for memory. Lena stepped to the mic and spoke. "I want to say something," Lena began. "Not as a professional. Not as the bride from that video. Just as a person who learned something the hard way." The room quieted. "People will judge you before they know you," Lena said. "They will measure you by your clothes, your job title, your last name, your accent, your bank account. And sometimes, the people who judge you the hardest are the ones whose lives are built on things they didn't earn." She paused, emotion rising. "I used to think I had to prove I belonged. That if I was quiet enough, polite enough, grateful enough, I would be safe." Her voice steadied. "But safety that requires silence isn't safety. It's a cage." The crowd listened like they were holding their breath. Lena continued. "The day I was humiliated, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never recover. But I learned something. When people try to break you publicly, you don't owe them a private collapse." She looked toward her mother. I had people who loved me when I didn't feel lovable. People who reminded me that dignity isn't a gift. It's a right. Lena turned back to the room. So here's the moral. Respect everyone. Not because you know who they are, but because you don't. The audience applauded, soft at first, then stronger. And Lena smiled not because everything was perfect but because she was whole. Outside, as the event ended, Lena stepped into the sunlight and breathed. Her phone buzzed. A message from the oversight office, charges filed. Further actions pending. Lena stared at the screen, then closed her eyes for a moment. Instant karma doesn't always look like lightning. Sometimes it looks like paperwork. Sometimes it looks like people no longer being afraid. Sometimes it looks like a woman who was underestimated, standing tall without needing anyone's permission. And as Lena walked forward, past the past, past the shame, into a life built on truth, she realized the happiest day of her life hadn't been stolen. It had simply been rescheduled.